Every time that I'm asked to speak or hold a workshop on personal development, mindfulness, or self care, I ask the people in attendance to make a list of 10 things that they love about themselves that has nothing to do with other people. Don't write about what you do for others or what they do for you. Don't write about how you take care of others, vice versa. And of course, more than half of those in attendance never finish the list. Even those who believe that they have a very high sense of self will find some difficulty in showing themselves compassion without drawing a sense of said compassion from external forces. If the usual reflective exercises aren't conducive to your life, there are other ways to cultivate that self compassion. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So, you're sitting at your desk, you just finished a project, and for whatever reason, you feel that it's just not good enough, and you're stressing out about it. You are aware of the advantages of self compassion and question if using any of these techniques would improve your attitude towards the work that you've done. One self compassion practice, for instance, asks you to consider something about yourself that bothers you and pen a letter from the viewpoint of a sympathetic acquaintance. Another practice will ask you to picture a sympathetic friend consoling you as you struggle. Additionally, there is a technique for dealing with this inner critic. Right about now, you could use a sympathetic companion to reassure you regarding your report. So you picture a friend consoling you from their seat saying, "It's going to be okay. You did the best that you can do, and that's all that you can expect from yourself. You're going to be all right." Now, these thoughts coming from your buddy seem hollow. You aren't at ease any more now than you were before you imagined this person trying to console you. To be honest, you actually feel a little worse because now you're recalling the times where you have submitted reports and projects that your supervisor or instructors thought were awful. Your conviction that your report is flawed has now increased instead of decreased. You just went through what's called a backdraft. Backdraft occurs when you attempt to be kind to yourself and find yourself feeling worse as a result. It's a typical component of developing self compassion. So, what can you do if engaging in compassion makes you feel worse, or if the idea of liking yourself makes you feel uncomfortable? Thankfully for all of us, thinking cozy and reassuring thoughts in our head is not the only method to take care of yourself when you're having a hard time practicing self compassion or when that practice seems to fail you instead of helping. About 40% of us experience an insecure connection to our guardians and parents and caretakers when we're children. And these individuals may develop a fear or aversion to self compassion. Caregivers are consistently and appropriately responsive to the requirements of a kid in secure parent child relationships. A feeling of safety permeates the upbringing of a securely attached child. Parents who have insecure attachments do not consistently and effectively respond to their children's emotional signals. It's possible for a parent to be too disengaged, angry, or despondent to respond appropriately. These young people develop some level of worldly worry. The connection between attachment style and dread of self compassion was initially investigated by clinical psychologist Paul Gilbert, who's also the creator of compassion focused therapy. He explained how our two emotional control systems, what he called the threat system and the contentment system, develop differently depending on whether we are securely or insecurely connected. Children who are securely attached benefit from what he refers to as the contentment system, which gives them a feeling of support from others. This generates emotional memories of feeling safe and supported, which self compassion can later trigger. Adults who are privileged enough to receive a compassionate parent's hug can find comfort just remembering them because thoughts can bring back painful memories. Children who have insecure attachments do not experience that feeling of security and assurance from their guardians. They don't have access to the same pool of consoling emotional recollections that are triggered by self compassion exercises. Gilbert then goes on to explain that children with weak attachments have extremely active threat detection systems. A kid with insecure attachment may find a compassionate act to be threatening, whereas a secure attached adult would find it to be very comforting. Let's take the case of a child who's been rejected by their parents. The parents of an insecurely attached child will scowl at the child's sadness and urge them to toughen up rather than responding to them with compassion. A child's perception of social safety is threatened by this rejection experience. Threat detection is now turned on. Children who have functioning threat systems may start to perceive the need for kindness as an indication of their weakness. It works like this. A child who asked for compassion from their parents by crying, for example, was met with disgust at their vulnerability for requiring compassion and grows up to be an insecurely attached adult who's not open to receiving compassion, whether it comes from others or from themselves. Now, let's imagine that this anxiously attached adult is feeling depressed when an acquaintance comes over to show them sympathy. The attached adult who's insecure withdraws from this friend's sympathy because they assume that they are being perceived as being weak. After all, only weak people require sympathy, right? Anyone expressing it to them is really suggesting that they lack the fortitude necessary to deal with whatever circumstance they found themselves in. These people are afraid of being rejected. They're afraid of receiving harsh criticism or feeling undeserving. So they are now in a position to resist any displays of compassion that they receive from outside sources. Gilbert went on to create a survey to gauge the potential severity of the dread of self compassion. We can get a sense of the varied apprehensions that people have about self compassion by looking at the survey's various statements. Things like, I worry that my standards will decline if I'm gentler with myself and less critical. Or I worry that if I show more sympathy for myself, I'll be weakened. I worry that people will abandon me if I grow in my self compassion. Doing mental exercises such as taking a self compassion break during your lunch period may not be the best course of action for people who tend to rate highly on the fear of self compassion scale, such as adult children of insecure attachments like abuse survivors. These individuals may need to find an alternative method of self compassion exercises. Mental exercises may trigger old pain. Say, for example, that you tell yourself it's okay to feel melancholy in an effort to assist yourself. Your words to yourself don't make you feel better. Instead, they make you feel anxious because you have an emotional memory of being informed that being sad is unacceptable, even if you're aware of it. The other option is to engage in behavioral self compassion, which entails determining what you require at the time to make yourself feel comforted, such as petting your dog or taking a break away from your computer screen, going for a walk, having a coffee break, and so on and so forth. Each person's self compassion practice should be tailored to their unique requirements and situations. Behavioral self compassion is generally safer than mental activities. However, it can be challenging to exercise behavioral self compassion and identify our immediate needs when we're in distress. Ask yourself the following questions and answer them in detail. What do I need to feel secure? What do I need to feel reassurance, ease, or approval? What do I need to safeguard, support, or inspire myself? When you make the decision to start implementing new self compassion techniques into your care practice, you have to keep in mind all of the ways that you're already taking care of yourself. You want to start using warm baths as part of your physical care, but you currently just go to the gym. You want to add watching funny movies to your mental health care, which is currently just made up of silent meditation. You want to add cooking to your emotional care that's made up of just repeating affirmations. Finding the best methods to suit your individual needs and learning how to implement them into your current regimen is not always going to be simple. You may find yourself in a high stress situation. Usually, you would allow yourself to indulge in a sweet snack like cookies or something, but you want to be more healthy and try a new healthy practice. So you convince yourself that when you are in high stress situations and you want something sweet, you're going to take a warm bath instead. But it's the middle of the workday. Now you need to find an alternative to both methods. Like I said before, it's not going to be easy and it's going to take determination and practice. You have to consider your immediate needs and the different ways available to remedy them in the moment when engaging in behavioral self compassion. You have to have discernment as to who you are as a person, what the real issue is behind the situation you're currently in, and what you genuinely require in order to avoid causing more harm in said situation. Whatever techniques that you choose, they need to be tailored to you and your lifestyle. This way, you know what works best for you when you need to create a feeling of being protected or a safe space, if you would. You want to feel as if you have the ability to express your thoughts or feelings, make mistakes, and take chances without any fear of embarrassment or ridicule. This is what we call psychological safety. I would also add that it's perfectly okay to seek help from others or a professional to help you learn how to safely navigate any changes to your self care or self compassion regimens. To be honest with you, it's best to have a reliable person in your corner. That way, you're not doing any of these practices or changes on your own. Despite it being referred to as self compassion, it's best acquired through social interaction. We're more likely to succeed when we have the opportunity to observe how other people's handle similar situations to our own. These practices are not like the self esteem building practices that you can do in the mirror, like when you recite your daily affirmations and watch your reflections so that you can learn to love who you are and give yourself the reassurance that you desire. These practices are more of the actions that you take when you've fallen from the pedestal of motivation and you need a boost to get you back up there. Programs that promote self compassion are great when they're practiced in group settings because self compassion training can be fairly difficult, especially if you don't go into it with the proper intentions. Even the best advice you receive is not going to help you. You have to have an end goal in mind. So consider this: when we're in pain and extend compassion to ourselves, not to make yourself feel better, but because you feel terrible, you've just guaranteed your failure in the practice because you're working to alleviate the pain in the present moment. The goal is to be consistent in daily self compassion just because you always have to have compassion for yourself at all times, not just when you're having a hard time. That would be like waiting for a kitchen fire to go out and purchase a fire extinguisher. That's silly, right? You need to have measures and plans already in place so that you, one, don't panic, and two, have the ability to resolve the issues when they arise. You have to stay ready. You have to have compassion for yourself already in you so that when you're having a hard time, you know how to alleviate yourself of whatever pain and suffering that you're going through in that situation.